The city buzzed with life outside, neon lights flickering against the pavement as Opie stood outside the grand entrance of La Riviere, one of the most expensive restaurants in town. A place where the wealthy dined, where meals weren't just food, they were statements of status. Opie had never been invited to a family gathering here before. Not that they had really been invited this time either. It had started with a casual scroll through social media. A notification popped up. Cousin Lisa tagged everyone in a post. Curious, Opie clicked on it. A boisterous caption greeted them. Family night. Nothing better than celebrating with the ones who matter most. The photo attached to it showed the whole family dressed in their best, laughing, clinking glasses, seemingly thrilled for the night ahead. Opie's name wasn't tagged. Their stomach twisted. It wasn't the first time this had happened. Opie had always been the outsider, the one conveniently forgotten when plans were made, the one who only found out about family events through whispers or accidental mentions. A deep sigh escaped them before they hesitantly typed into the family group chat. Looks like everyone's going out tonight. What's the occasion? A minute passed. Then 2. The read-receipts appeared, but no one replied. Just as Opie was about to put their phone away, a message finally popped up. Oh, it's just a little family dinner. Nothing big. Not big. The restaurant choice said otherwise. Oh, family, huh? Opie had replied, biting the inside of their cheek. The silence stretched again before another reply finally appeared. You can come if you want. If you want. Not, we'd love for you to come. Not, of course, you should be here. Just if you want. And yet, here they were, standing at the entrance, fighting the urge to turn around. But they refused to give their family the satisfaction of knowing how much their exclusion stung. Taking a deep breath, Opie stepped inside. The restaurant was stunning. Marble floors gleamed under the soft golden glow of chandeliers, and hushed conversations mixed with the sounds of clinking silverware. A sharply dressed host greeted Opie with a professional smile. Good evening. Do you have a reservation? Yeah, I think my family already checked in. Last name, last name. The host's gaze flicked down at his list before nodding. Ah, yes. Right this way. Opie followed, weaving past elegantly dressed patrons, their fingers tightening around the strap of their bag. Their family's table came into view. A large round setup in the center of the room, filled with laughter, glasses raised in toasts, and conversations flowing effortlessly. A sense of relief flickered in Opie, until they noticed there was no empty seat at the table. The host led them slightly to the side, where a much smaller table had been set up, a table for one. Here you go, the host said smoothly, pulling out the chair for Opie. For a moment, Opie just stared at the lonely place setting. Their stomach clenched. This wasn't an accident. From the main table, a few heads turned. Cousin Lisa waved half-heartedly before turning back to her conversation. Opie's parents barely glanced their way. Swallowing hard, Opie forced a polite smile and sat down. Minutes passed. The waiter approached, setting a menu down. Would you like to order now, or would you like to see what the rest of your party is having? Opie glanced over. Their family wasn't browsing menus. They had already ordered and were now enjoying plates of lobster, steak, and elaborate side dishes. No one had waited for them. Figures. I'll need a moment, Opie murmured, placing the menu down. A burst of laughter erupted from the main table. Opie turned slightly, catching snippets of conversation. I can't believe you pulled that off, man. You're set for life now. Must be nice. A toast went up, glasses clinking together. To family, to success, and to new beginnings. Opie hesitated, reaching for their water glass, but as their family's cheers rang out, it became painfully clear no one had included them in the toast. Their hand tightened around the glass before they set it down untouched. As the night wore on, something gnawed at Opie. The atmosphere at the main table wasn't just celebratory, it was excessive. Expensive wine bottles lined the table. Plates piled high with gourmet dishes kept arriving. Even by their family standards, they were going all out. That uneasy feeling deepened when their older brother, Nathan, suddenly leaned over from his seat, smirking slightly. You don't mind chipping in, right? He asked, almost too casually. Opie frowned. What? Nathan gestured at the extravagant spread. The bill. Since we're all here together, it's only fair we split it, don't you think? Something ice-cold settled in Opie's gut. They glanced at the table again. At the untouched, still full menu in front of them. At the plates of food already halfway eaten, food they hadn't even ordered. And suddenly they knew. This wasn't just a night out. This was a setup to Opie's fingers curled around the edge of the table, their heartbeat drumming in their ears. Nathan's words echoed in their mind, mixing with the clatter of silverware and the low hum of conversation around them. You don't mind chipping in, right? Their eyes flicked back to the main table, scanning the extravagant spread, the perfectly seared wagyu steaks, towers of lobster tails, and half-empty bottles of imported wine. It was excessive. Way too excessive. It wasn't just a nice family dinner. It was a feast. And now, they wanted Opie to pay for it. Nathan leaned back in his chair, swirling the wine in his glass, waiting for an answer. A few others at the table had taken interest in the conversation, but no one jumped in to defend Opie. They were all expecting them to comply. Opie inhaled slowly, schooling their expression. How much are we talking about? Nathan's grin widened, and he waved the waiter over. Could we get the bill, so we can split it? He asked, as though this had been the plan all along. Opie watched as the waiter nodded and disappeared toward the register. Their stomach clenched. This was wrong. All of it. No one had included them when ordering. No one had even told them about the dinner until OP had asked. They had been shoved to the side, ignored, treated like an outsider, until it came time to pay. And now, they wanted OP to foot a portion of the bill for food they hadn't even touched. Their mother finally turned to them, offering a too-sweet smile. It's just fair, honey. We're all family after all. Family. Right. The word felt hollow coming from her mouth. OP clenched their jaw, but before they could respond, the waiter returned, placing the leather-bound bill folder onto the table in front of Nathan. Nathan barely glanced at it before sliding it toward OP with a smirk. Here you go. OP's breath hitched as they flipped open the folder. The total was $2,200. For a moment, the number blurred in OP's vision. They blinked, their fingers tightening around the edge of the bill. $2,200, they said slowly, voice dangerously calm. Nathan laughed, waving his hand. Relax, we're splitting it. How many ways? He tilted his head, pretending to think. Well, let's see. Mom and Dad probably shouldn't have to pay, right? Their mother smiled approvingly. And Lisa's been having a rough time financially, Nathan continued, tapping his chin. Oh, and Uncle Jeff paid last time, so he's off the hook. OP's stomach twisted. So, that leaves you, me and Brian, Nathan concluded, grinning like he had done them a favor. 3 people. Which meant OP's portion was roughly $733. $733. For a dinner they hadn't eaten. OP let out a slow breath, setting the bill down carefully. You're joking. Nathan shrugged. It's only fair. We all enjoyed the night, didn't we? OP scanned the table, looking for anyone who might step in. Their father avoided their gaze, busy cutting into a steak. Lisa suddenly found her wine glass very interesting. No one was going to speak up. They had planned this. They had invited OP last minute, set them apart, ordered without them, and now expected them to pay just as much as the ones who had devoured the food and drinks. Anger bubbled in OP's chest, but they forced themselves to stay calm. They leaned back in their chair, crossing their arms. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I didn't order a single thing. Why should I pay? Lisa scoffed. You were still here, weren't you? It's not like you didn't benefit from the atmosphere. The atmosphere. OP let out a short, humorless laugh. Right. Because being treated like an afterthought was such a great experience. Their mother's expression hardened. Don't be ungrateful. It's just money. Then you pay it. OP shot back. A bead of silence fell over the table. Nathan's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly, shaking his head. Come on, don't be difficult. We all chip in when we go out. You mean you all chip in? OP corrected. I was never a part of that arrangement. And funny enough, none of you ever invite me when it's just a normal, affordable dinner. Only now, when it's a $2,200 meal. The tension at the table grew thick. A few family members exchanged uneasy glances. Nathan sighed dramatically. Fine. You can pay a little less. Just cover. No. The single word sliced through the air like a knife. Opie leaned forward, pushing the bill folder back toward Nathan. I'm not paying a cent. If you wanted me to split the bill, you should have treated me like an actual part of this dinner. Not an afterthought. Not a walking wallet. Nathan's face darkened. Seriously. Seriously. Their mother pursed her lips. You're embarrassing us, dear. Opie exhaled sharply, standing up. No. You embarrass me. You excluded me, ignored me, then expected me to pay for your fun. Nathan was about to argue, but Opie didn't wait. They turned on their heel and strode toward the front desk. Behind them, they could hear the rising voices of their family, probably scrambling to decide who would cover the unexpected shortfall. It wasn't Opie's problem. As they stepped out into the night, the weight in their chests lightened. For the first time in years, they felt free. This wasn't just a dinner. It was the last time they would let their family treat them like they were disposable. The night air was crisp as Opie stepped outside the restaurant, their breath forming small clouds in the cold. Their heart was still racing, but they didn't regret walking away. For once, they had put themselves first. Their phone buzzed in their pocket. 5 missed calls, all from Nathan. Then, a flood of texts came in. Nathan, what the hell was that? Nathan, you just walked out like a child. Grow up. Lisa, Mom is really upset. You embarrassed her in front of everyone. Dad, come back and do the right thing. You can't just leave us like this. Uncle Jeff, you could have handled that better, kid. Opie rolled her eyes. Handled it better? What, by quietly accepting their role as the family ATM? No, not anymore. They silenced their phone and kept walking, feeling lighter with every step that Opie woke up to even more messages. Some were guilt-tripping, others outright furious. But one message stood out from the rest. It was from their mother. Mom, you have no idea what you've done. You humiliated me in front of our entire family. Nathan had to put the entire bill on his credit card. He's furious. I raised you better than this. Opie scoffed. She raised me better than this? This coming from the same woman who sat by while Opie was excluded and then demanded they pay. It wasn't guilt Opie felt, it was relief. They finally saw the truth. They decided they wouldn't respond. They were done playing their games at a few hours later. Opie was sipping coffee when their phone rang again. This time it wasn't Nathan. It was Brian. Brian, the only other person Nathan had expected to split the bill. Curious, Opie answered. Hey, Brian said, his voice lower than usual. Can we talk? Opie leaned back in their chair. What's up? A heavy sigh came from the other end. I wanted to say, I get it. Opie blinked. That was unexpected. You do? Yeah, Brian admitted. Nathan put the whole bill on his card, but guess what? Now he's trying to make me pay half. Opie wasn't surprised. Let me guess, he suddenly can't afford it? Exactly, Brian muttered. He assumed I'd cover your share. I told him no, and now he's pissed. Opie let out a short laugh. So he's fine with screwing me over, but not when it happens to him? Pretty much. There was a long pause before Brian spoke again. For what it's worth, he said. I respect what you did. I should have done the same. Opie was silent for a moment, then smirked. Better late than never. Brian chuckled. Yeah, but hey, one more thing. Mom's planning something. Be careful. Opie frowned. What do you mean? Brian hesitated. Just don't be surprised if she tries to guilt you into making it up to the family. You know how she is. Opie sighed. Of course. It was never over with her. But this time, they were ready. The night air was crisp as Opie stepped outside the restaurant, their breath forming small clouds in the cold. Their heart was still racing, but they didn't regret walking away. For once, they had put themselves first. Their phone buzzed in their pocket. 5 missed calls, all from Nathan. Then, a flood of texts came in. Nathan, what the hell was that? Nathan, you just walked out like a child. Grow up. Lisa, Mom is really upset. You embarrassed her in front of everyone. Dad, come back and do the right thing. You can't just leave us like this. Uncle Jeff, you could have handled that better, kid. Opie rolled their eyes. Handled it better? What, by quietly accepting their role as the family ATM? No, not anymore. They silenced their phone and kept walking, feeling lighter with every step. Opie woke up to even more messages. Some were guilt-tripping, others outright furious. But one message stood out from the rest. It was from their mother. Mom, you have no idea what you've done. You humiliated me in front of our entire family. Nathan had to put the entire bill on his credit card. He's furious. I raised you better than this. Opie scoffed. She raised me better than this? This coming from the same woman who sat by while Opie was excluded and then demanded they pay. It wasn't guilt Opie felt, it was relief. They finally saw the truth. They decided they wouldn't respond. They were done playing their games and a few hours later, Opie was sipping coffee when their phone rang again. This time it wasn't Nathan. It was Brian. Brian, the only other person Nathan had expected to split the bill. Curious, Opie answered. Hey, Brian said, his voice lower than usual. Can we talk? Opie leaned back in their chair. What's up? A heavy sigh came from the other end. I wanted to say, I get it. Opie blinked. That was unexpected. You do? Yeah, Brian admitted. Nathan put the whole bill on his card, but guess what? Now he's trying to make me pay half. Opie wasn't surprised. Let me guess. He suddenly can't afford it? Exactly, Brian muttered. He assumed I'd cover your share. I told him no, and now he's pissed. Opie let out a short laugh. So he's fine with screwing me over, but not when it happens to him? Pretty much. There was a long pause before Brian spoke again. For what it's worth, he said. I respect what you did. I should have done the same. Opie was silent for a moment, then smirked. Better late than never. Brian chuckled. Yeah, but hey, one more thing. Mom's planning something. Be careful. Opie frowned. What do you mean? Brian hesitated. Just don't be surprised if she tries to guilt you into making it up to the family. You know how she is. Opie sighed. Of course. It was never over with her. But this time, they were ready to. Opie had barely finished digesting Brian's warning when their phone rang again. Mom. They considered letting it go to voicemail, but something in Brian's tone had stuck with them. She's planning something. With a sigh, Opie answered. Hello. A deep sigh came through the line, the kind Opie knew all too well. The disappointed mother act was about to begin. I just don't understand, Mom said, her voice heavy with feigned sorrow. How could you do this to your own family? Opie didn't take the bait. You mean, how could I refuse to pay for a dinner I wasn't even part of? Don't be like that, she scolded gently, as if Opie was a child throwing a tantrum. You humiliated me. You embarrassed us all. Nathan had to put the whole thing on his card. Do you know how much stress you caused? Opie leaned back in their chair unimpressed. Oh, I'm sure it was stressful. Being forced to actually pay for what you ordered usually is. Mom gasped. That's not the point. We're family. Families support each other. Opie's patience was wearing thin. Oh, now I'm family? That's funny, because last night, I sure didn't feel like family when I was being ignored at the table. There was a long pause before Mom sighed again, shifting tactics. Honey, I know you felt left out. But sometimes, you need to make sacrifices for the good of the family. Nathan does so much for us. Opie cut her off. Nathan does so much for you. And you let him get away with everything. The mask finally cracked. You're being selfish, she snapped. After everything this family has done for you. What has this family done for me? Opie interrupted. Silence. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Opie continued. You take me for granted. You call when you need money, help, favors, but when was the last time you actually included me in anything? Not just as a wallet, but as part of the family. More silence. Then, she sighed dramatically. I see. So you're really choosing to be difficult. Opie laughed. I'm choosing to be done. Before Mom could continue, Opie hung up. Opie thought that was the end of it. But the next afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Through the peephole, they saw Nathan. Opie exhaled sharply, bracing themselves. They opened the door, just enough to lean against the frame. What do you want? Nathan didn't bother with pleasantries. His expression was tight with anger. You humiliated me last night. Good, Opie said flatly. His jaw clenched. You think this is funny? You made me pay a bill I wasn't expecting. Oh, you mean like how you expected me to pay without warning? Opie shot back. Nathan scoffed. It's different. How? No answer. Opie crossed their arms. Let me guess. Mom sent you. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. She's upset. She thinks you should apologize. Opie actually laughed at that. Let me get this straight. You all excluded me, ignored me, then tried to scam me into paying, and I'm the one who should apologize. Nathan scowled. You're being dramatic. Opie tilted their head. You know what's actually dramatic? Throwing a fit because you finally had to cover your own expenses. Nathan's eyes flashed with anger. You don't get it. You screwed over the whole family. They're upset. You need to fix this. Opie's expression hardened. No, Nathan. You need to fix this. Because I'm done letting this family treat me like a doormat. Nathan opened his mouth, but Opie didn't give him the chance. They shut the door in his face. For the first time in years, they felt completely freed. Nathan's angry face was still burned into Opie's mind as they locked the door behind him. 4 years, they had tolerated this, the blatant favoritism, the manipulation, the expectation that they would always be there to pick up the pieces for their so-called family. But not anymore. The weight that had settled in Opie's chest for so long was finally lifting. Then their phone buzzed. A group chat notification. Family group chat. Mom, since Opie refuses to be a part of this family, we've all decided it's time to set some boundaries. Lisa, you really showed your true colors, Opie. After everything Mom and Dad have done for you? Disgusting. Uncle Jeff, you made your choice. Don't come crying to us when you need something. Dad, disappointed but not surprised. Nathan, I hope it was worth it. Opie stared at the messages, feeling nothing but a strange sense of relief. Their whole life, they had been chasing acceptance from these people, bending over backward to be seen, to be included. And now, they were finally free of that chase. Don't come crying to us when you need something. Funny, when had Opie ever needed them? They smirked and typed out a final message. Opie, finally, some peace and quiet. Enjoy paying your own bills. Then, with one deep breath, they did something they never thought they would. They left the group chat. Over the next few days, Opie expected to feel guilt. But instead, they felt lighter. No more calls demanding money. No more last-minute favors. No more sitting at a table where they weren't wanted. They started focusing on themselves. They picked up an old hobby, spent time with real friends, even treated themselves to a nice dinner, one they didn't have to pay for anyone else. Then a week later, their phone rang. Brian. Opie hesitated, then answered. Hey. Brian sighed. Mom's freaking out. Opie smirked. I figured. She thought you'd cave by now. She's already asking me to cover for her. Surprise, surprise, Opie said. And what did you say? Brian hesitated. Then, to Opie's shock, he laughed. I told her no. I told her to figure it out herself. Opie blinked. Really? Yeah, Brian admitted. You were right. I was always too scared to stand up to them. But after seeing you do it, I realized I'm tired of it too. Opie smiled, a warmth spreading in their chest. Welcome to freedom, they said. Brian chuckled. Feels pretty damn good. And for the first time in a long time, Opie knew they had truly won. Weeks passed, and life for Opie continued on its newfound path of peace. They focused on themselves for the first time in ages, investing time in hobbies, exploring new interests, and finally feeling the joy of not being tethered to a family that only saw them as a resource. But then, late one afternoon, there was a knock on the door. Opie frowned, already suspecting who it might be. They opened the door to find Mom standing there, her face pale, and her posture stiff with an unfamiliar humility. Mom! Opie started, the words catching in their throat. Can we talk? She asked, her voice softer than usual, lacking her typical stern authority. Opie crossed their arms. About what? How you want me to come back and clean up your mess? Mom winced. It's not like that, honey. I need to apologize. Opie blinked, unsure if they had heard correctly. What? I was wrong, she admitted, her voice quivering slightly. I didn't realize how much I was taking you for granted. How much I pushed you to do everything for everyone. A lump formed in Opie's throat, but they remained firm, not allowing any sentiment to cloud their judgment. So now, after everything, you want me to just forget it all? Mom took a deep breath. I don't expect you to forgive me just like that, but I've realized. I've treated you like you owe me something. And you don't. Opie was silent for a moment, letting the words sink in. I'm sorry, she whispered again, this time with tears welling up in her eyes. I've made a lot of mistakes. Over the next few days, Opie was bombarded with apologies, not just from Mom, but from Nathan, Lisa, and even Uncle Jeff. Nathan showed up at their door, his hands in his pockets, avoiding Opie's gaze. I know I messed up, he said, his tone lacking the usual arrogance. I shouldn't have tried to make you pay. And I'm sorry for making everything about me. Opie raised an eyebrow. Is that a real apology, or just you trying to get me to pay for your mistakes? Nathan hesitated, then sighed. No, it's real. I've been an idiot. And I've been your doormat. Opie muttered under their breath. Nathan winced but nodded. Yeah, you have been. I get that now. While OP felt the weight of their family's remorse, they couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. These were the same people who had always expected them to fall in line, to do as they were told. But now, it was their turn to set boundaries. And they intended to make sure it stayed that way. The family came together again, not for a holiday, not for some emergency, but because they truly needed to talk about what they had done wrong and how they could fix it. But OP didn't go back to being the person who paid the bills or cleaned up the messes. They remained the same, but different. They were no longer the servant of the family. They were a member, but one with limits. Nathan, finally realizing the full extent of OP's strength, started making genuine efforts to repair their relationship. Lisa followed suit, understanding that OP was no longer someone she could manipulate or guilt-trip. Even Uncle Jeff, who had always been the silent enabler, began speaking up when he saw others trying to treat OP unfairly. The family dynamic had changed, and for once, OP was in control today. As weeks went on, OP found themselves more at peace than ever before. They had reclaimed their independence, their dignity, and most importantly, their voice. The family would always be family, but OP knew they would no longer be controlled or manipulated by guilt. They had drawn the line, and no matter what, they were never going back to who they used to be. Life continued on in its quiet, peaceful rhythm for OP. They had established boundaries, started taking better care of themselves, and found new paths to explore that didn't include endless family obligations. For the first time in a long while, they felt like they were living for themselves. But then the phone rang one evening, and the name on the screen made their stomach churn. Mom. OP stared at the screen for a moment, their fingers hovering over the screen. Should I answer? They had already made it clear they needed space. But something in their gut told them this call wasn't like the others. It was different. Sighing, they answered. Hello. OP. Mom's voice was shaky, desperate. We need you. OP blinked, thrown by the urgency in her voice. What do you mean, we need you? We're in trouble. Nathan got himself into a mess, and I don't know what to do. OP's heart sank. Not again. What kind of trouble? They asked, trying to remain calm. Mom hesitated, then rushed the words out. He's in financial trouble. He's been making bad investments, and now he's lost a lot of money, more than he can cover. He's scared, OP. Please, we need you to help us out. OP felt a wave of frustration hit them. Was this another scheme? Another way for the family to pull them back into their old role? I'm not doing this, Mom, OP said firmly, their voice unwavering. You've all had your chance to rely on me. I'm done. There was silence on the other end of the line, and OP could almost hear the guilt creeping into their mom's voice. I don't know what to say, Mom finally murmured. Please, you're the only one who can help us now. OP took a deep breath, shaking their head. They had promised themselves they wouldn't fall back into this trap, no matter how hard it was to stay strong. I'm sorry, Mom. I can't keep enabling this. A long pause followed, then Mom spoke softly. Please understand, OP. We're just family. We need each other. You've always been there for us before. No, OP said, the finality in their voice unmistakable. You had your chances. I gave everything to this family, and I'm done being used. If Nathan made bad choices, that's on him. Mom's voice cracked. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I thought you'd understand. But maybe I've lost you for good. OP paused. That last part, maybe I've lost you for good, stung in a way they didn't expect. For a moment, they wondered if they were making the right choice. But they quickly reminded themselves, this wasn't about doing what was expected or what would keep the peace. It was about standing up for themselves, for their own well-being. I'm sorry, Mom, OP repeated, their voice softer now but no less firm. But I can't keep sacrificing my life for people who don't respect me. Before Mom could say anything more, OP hung up. It wasn't long before Nathan showed up at OP's door, looking disheveled and exhausted. He had clearly been on edge for days, and his usual arrogance was nowhere to be found. His shoulders were slumped, and his eyes lacked their usual fire. OP, you don't understand, Nathan started, his voice low. I messed up. Big time. Please, I need your help. OP crossed their arms, eyeing him coldly. No, Nathan. You don't get to come to me every time you screw up and expect me to fix it. He took a step forward, desperation in his eyes. I'm sorry. I know I was a jerk before, but I didn't realize how much I took you for granted. I need help, OP. I don't know where else to turn. OP looked him over, feeling a brief flash of sympathy, but they quickly smothered it. This is the consequence of your own actions, Nathan. I'm not bailing you out. Nathan's face hardened. So that's it? You're just going to let me sink? OP stood tall, unwavering. Yes. It's not my responsibility to rescue you anymore. Nathan's expression faltered, and for a brief moment, he seemed to lose his arrogance. But before OP could process it, he turned sharply and walked off without another word. Weeks went by, and OP felt the weight of their decision slowly start to settle in. They had held their ground, but the guilt still lingered. The feeling of cutting ties with their family, of not being there when they needed help, it wasn't easy. But as time went on, OP began to notice something surprising. They were better off. Without the constant emotional drain of their family's problems, OP's life started to improve in ways they hadn't anticipated. They found new opportunities, new friendships, and the freedom to finally live life on their own terms. Even though the family still tried to reach out, via texts, calls, and occasional visits, OP stayed firm, setting boundaries that allowed them to continue healing. And though the weight of their choice sometimes made them question their path, they knew they couldn't go back. They had chosen their own life over the suffocating expectations of a family that never truly appreciated them. In the end, Opie realized that this was their true victory, not just standing up to their family, but finally taking control of their own life. Months passed since Opie's decision to step away from their family, and they had learned to thrive without constantly giving in to the demands and guilt. The weight of their choice had lessened, and though the void left by their family's absence was still there, Opie had learned to fill it with their own purpose and happiness. However, it wasn't over yet. The family wasn't ready to let Opie go so easily. It all started with a letter, a thick envelope with a corporate-looking seal. Opie frowned as they saw it had come from their father's lawyer. They hadn't heard from him in ages. They tore it open, curiosity gnawing at them. The letter inside was short but to the point. Dear Opie, after much consideration and discussion, we have decided to update the terms of the family trust and the inheritance. You are hereby invited to a family meeting to discuss your position regarding the future of the family estate and the current situation regarding your brother Nathan's financial distress. We trust that you will consider this matter seriously. Sincerely, Dad's legal team. Opie stared at the letter, disbelief creeping in. What was this? A last-ditch effort to get me back in the fold? They had no intention of attending, but curiosity gnawed at them, and for the first time in months, they found themselves on the phone, calling their brother Brian. Did you get the letter? Opie asked, their voice low. Brian was silent for a moment before answering. Yeah, I got it. I'm not going either. So what is this about? They think I'm going to come back just because of some estate meeting. Opie asked, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. Brian sighed. I don't know, but I'll tell you this. It's all about the money. Dad's estate is worth more than you can imagine, and Nathan's debts are piling up. Mom, well, she's still trying to find a way to make things right, but I don't think they're going to let you walk away so easily. Opie clenched their fists. I'm done being the family's emergency fund. I'm not playing their game. I don't think you'll have a choice. They'll make it sound like it's your duty, like you owe them. I don't owe them anything, Opie said, their voice growing steely. They made their choices, and I'm making mine. Despite everything, Opie decided to attend the meeting. They knew it wasn't about money, it was about proving that they were not going to be manipulated or guilt back into the fold. They wouldn't let their family use their money or presence as a bargaining chip. The family gathering was in a lavishly furnished room in their father's estate. Opie walked in, their heart racing, not from fear, but from the anticipation of the confrontation that was about to unfold. Mom, Nathan, Lisa, Uncle Jeff, and even the family lawyer were all seated around a large table. The atmosphere was tense, thick with unspoken expectations. Opie, I'm glad you could make it, Mom said, her voice lacking its usual confidence. We need to talk about Nathan's situation and how you can help. I'm here because I want to hear it from you, Opie replied, keeping their voice even. But don't expect me to bail Nathan out. Nathan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, not looking Opie in the eye. I messed up, okay? I'm sorry, but I can't fix this alone. I'm not here to fix it, Opie said coldly. This is your mess, Nathan. You made these choices, and now you deal with the consequences. I'm not here to clean it up. The room fell silent. Mom looked pained. Please, Opie. You don't understand. We need your help to save the family legacy. Opie shook their head. No. You need me to clean up your mistakes. You've all taken advantage of me for years, and I'm done. I'm not your safety net. Opie, Uncle Jeff interjected, his voice calm but firm. You can't just walk away from your responsibilities. You're part of this family. The estate, the business, all of it. It's your inheritance, too. Opie stood tall, a fire burning in their chest. I don't care about your inheritance. I care about being respected. And for once in my life, I'm going to choose myself. Mom's eyes watered as she stood up. I didn't want it to be this way, she whispered, almost to herself. But you're right. We took you for granted. Nathan looked up, finally meeting Opie's gaze. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Opie paused. After all the hurt, all the manipulation, they had expected to feel anger, resentment, maybe even satisfaction. But what they felt was something entirely different, freedom. Too little, too late, Opie said, turning toward the door. I'm done here. I've said everything I need to say. Opie walked out of the estate, feeling the weight of a long-held burden finally slip off their shoulders. For years, they had been tethered to a family that expected them to sacrifice everything for their approval, for their love. And now they were free. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Opie had control. They could build a future that was theirs alone, without fear of being dragged back into the suffocating expectations of a family that never truly understood them. As they drove away from the estate, the past fading in the rearview mirror, Opie smiled, knowing one thing for sure. They were finally living life on their own terms. The end.